I'm Liz, and by some twist of fate, I'm married to the most amazing guy I've ever met, Alex. We're both 28, have our own place, pay our bills, and live a life that's truly ours. It's been a year since we said, I do, and honestly, life has been great, except for one little thing. Alex's parents. Now, don't get me wrong. I never expected to be the perfect daughter-in-law, but I also didn't expect to feel like the unwanted guest at every family gathering. The day I met my in-laws felt like walking into a lion's den with a stake tied around my neck. Alex's mom, Jane, had a way of looking at me like she was trying to decide if I was more of a nuisance or just plain boring. Before I even had a chance to say hello, she had already sized me up and found me lacking. Alex had warned me. She can be a bit much, he said as we drove to their house for the first time. But don't take it to heart, okay?
I tried not to.
At dinner, I was passing the salt when Jane suddenly said, You know, Stephanie used to cook such wonderful meals. Remember that risotto, honey? She turned to Alex, who just nodded, his jaw tight. Yeah, I remember. He didn't even look at me. I sat there, salt shaker in hand, feeling invisible. They all talked about Stephanie, Alex's ex, as if I wasn't even there. I felt a pang in my chest but forced a smile. Sounds like she was a great cook, I said, trying to sound unaffected. Jane's eyes met mine and she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, she was a lot of things. That night, I told Alex how I felt. It's like she's measuring me against a ghost. Alex pulled me into a hug. You're the one I chose, Liz. That's all that matters. I wanted to believe him. But as I'd soon learn, Jane had a long game in mind, and I was just the pawn she was eager to sacrifice. Living with a food allergy isn't just inconvenient. It's like having a shadow that constantly whispers, danger is everywhere. Since I was a kid, peanuts have been my arch nemesis. It started with a spoonful of peanut paste and a terrifying trip to the emergency room. But it wasn't just peanuts. My list of forbidden foods read like a grocery store blacklist. Soy, peas, cherries, almonds, tomatoes, apricots, bananas, even potatoes. Waiters raised their eyebrows when they heard my allergies. Friends hesitated to invite me over for dinner. But you know who never forgot my allergy list?
Jane.
Yet somehow, she always managed to question it. Are you sure you can't have just a little bit of this pie? It only has almond extract, she'd ask, her voice hovering between concern and disbelief. I'd smile politely, even though I wanted to scream. Yeah, I'm sure. Thanks, though. It was always the same dance. At a family gathering, I was carefully scanning the buffet table, mentally checking off safe options. Alex, ever the supportive husband, stood beside me with his plate in hand, helping me find something I could eat. That's when Jane swooped in, her voice syrupy sweet. Liz, you must try this casserole. I made sure it was Liz-friendly, she announced. But something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. Alex paused, fork midair. Mom, you used cream of mushroom soup in this, right? He knew full well that many brands contain soy, one of my worst allergens. Jane's smile flickered, for just a second. Oh, I think so. But it should be fine. But it wasn't fine. We both knew it. We made our excuses, and I left the casserole untouched. But the incident stuck with me. It felt like Jane was playing a game, a dangerous one where she held all the cards because she controlled the kitchen. Alex and I had found a rare haven, an Italian restaurant that understood the gravity of food allergies. As always, I gave my usual spiel to the waiter, who nodded sympathetically. Alex watched me with those soft, loving eyes of his, the ones that said he'd do anything to make my life easier. You okay? He asked after the waiter left. I sighed. Yeah, I just hate making a fuss. He chuckled. You're not making a fuss. You're making sure you don't, die. I laughed, a short but grateful sound. Well, when you put it that way. After dinner, we walked under the clear night sky, my heart light for the first time in days. I felt happy. Safe. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Jane. Her words were like a cloud over the moon, darkening the moment. Be careful, Liz. Not everyone takes your conditions seriously. Wouldn't want anything to happen to you. I read the text aloud to Alex, my voice trembling slightly. Be careful, Liz. Not everyone takes your conditions seriously. Wouldn't want anything to happen to you. Alex wrapped an arm around me, pulling me close. She's just trying to get to you, he said, his tone reassuring. But as much as I wanted to shrug it off, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jane's message wasn't just a jab. It felt like a warning, a reminder that my allergy didn't just make me vulnerable to food, but also to people like her. People who saw my weakness as something to be exploited. The rest of the walk home, my mind replayed all the close calls I'd had. The accidental exposures. The moments where something could have gone horribly wrong. It wasn't just about peanuts, soy, or peas anymore. It was about something bigger. My allergy was a chink in my armor. And Jane? She had found it. And that thought was scarier than any allergic reaction I had ever had. Dinners at Jane's house always felt like an elaborate stage play. Everyone knew their roles, except me. I was the wild card, the one who could derail the evening with a single bite. Alex tried to make things easier for me, but there's only so much you can do when you're playing on someone else's home turf. One particular evening, the tension in the dining room was as thick as the gravy on the table. Jane bustled around, placing dish after dish in front of everyone, a satisfied smile on her face. I sat there, my plate empty, waiting to figure out what I could eat without ending up in the hospital. Then it happened. Alex, darling, pass the green beans to Liz. They're just divine, Jane said, her voice syrupy sweet. Alex reached for the bowl, but something felt off. What's in them? I asked, my voice cautious. Jane waved a hand dismissively. Oh, just a touch of almond slivers for crunch. My stomach dropped. I put my hand up, stopping Alex mid-reach. I can't eat those. Remember? Almonds are a no-go for me. Jane feigned surprise, pressing a hand dramatically to her chest. Oh, dear. I must have forgotten. Silly me. Alex's chair scraped against the floor as he pushed back and stood up. His voice was firm, edged with frustration. Mom, this is serious. Liz could end up in the hospital. For the briefest moment, I saw something flicker in Jane's eyes. Annoyance? Displeasure? Whatever it was gone in an instant, replaced by a carefully crafted look of innocence. I just wanted to make something nice, she said, her voice laced with faux sincerity. Then she sighed, shaking her head. It's not my fault Liz has all these allergies. The room fell silent. Forks paused midair, everyone staring at their plates, unsure of where to look. A flush crept up my neck, the heat of embarrassment and anger mixing into something ugly. Alex's father, Mark, cleared his throat in an attempt to break the tension. Let's just enjoy the meal, shall we? There's plenty Liz can eat. But the damage was done. The rest of dinner passed in strained politeness, with Jane throwing in pointed questions about my allergies as if she were studying for next time. Later that night, when Alex and I were alone, he sighed, rubbing his hands over his face. I'm sorry, Liz. I should have double-checked everything before we came. I shook my head. It's not your fault, Alex. But I'm starting to think your mom does these things on purpose. He didn't answer right away.
And he didn't need to.
We both knew the truth. Jane wasn't just being careless. She was serving up a side of malice with every meal. And I was the main course. It wasn't just the food. I could always tell when Jane had been working on Alex. He'd get this distant look in his eyes, like he was seeing me, but also seeing through me. Like he was weighing her words against his own judgment. Little by little, she was planting seeds of doubt. And the worst part? I didn't know if they were starting to grow. That evening, a cloud hung over Alex. I knew something was wrong before he even said a word. Mom thinks we should consider things, he muttered, eyes fixed on the TV remote as he fumbled with the buttons. Consider what? I asked, a sinking feeling already settling in my gut. He hesitated. The future.
Kids.
Your health issues. The word issues hung awkwardly between us, making my chest feel tight. She talked to you about my allergies again, didn't she? I pressed. Alex sighed, finally setting the remote down. She's just worried, Liz. She thinks it's a lot for us to handle, especially if we want a family. I bristled.
We've talked about this, Alex.
I've managed just fine so far, haven't I? And there are plenty of people with allergies who have kids. He ran a hand through his hair, a sure sign he was stressed. I know. It's just, she has this way of making me doubt things. The room was heavy with tension. I watched him, the man I loved, wrestling with the seeds of doubt his mother had planted. Alex, do you doubt us? I whispered. He finally looked up, his gaze clear and firm.
No.
I don't. I just hate that she keeps bringing it up. I hate that it makes us fight. I reached for his hand, intertwining our fingers. We're not fighting. We're on the same side, remember? He nodded, pulling me into a hug. You and me against the world, right? Right, I echoed. But as I held him, I couldn't shake the feeling that Jane's words were like weeds, threatening to choke the life out of the beautiful thing we had. And I realized then it wasn't just my allergies that needed managing. It was the doubts that could seep into the cracks of even the strongest relationships. The news of my pregnancy was a joyous surprise, for Alex and me at least. For everyone else, it was complicated. The day we announced it to his parents, Jane's reaction was like watching a robot trying to mimic human emotions. There was a pause, a smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. We're going to have a baby, Mom, Alex said, his voice a mix of pride and caution. Jane's lips curled into something that vaguely resembled a smile. That's wonderful, she managed to say, as if the word felt foreign in her mouth. Then she clapped her hands together. We must have a family dinner to celebrate. I hesitated. Celebrations at Jane's were never just celebrations. But I saw the hopeful look in Alex's eyes and agreed. The night of the dinner, Jane's house was buzzing with relatives. She played the role of the perfect hostess, floating between guests with practiced ease. When she reached us, her smile was polished, precise, and calculated. Congratulations, Liz, she said, her voice coated in false warmth. Thank you, Jane, I replied, matching her formality. We're really excited. Alex wrapped an arm around my waist, a silent thank you for playing along. As dinner approached, I felt the familiar weight of anxiety. A table full of food was a minefield for me. But tonight I hoped would be different. The feast was extravagant, dish after dish laid out across the table. I felt every eye on me as I hesitated, my hand hovering over the options. Go on, dear, Jane urged, her voice too sweet. You're eating for two now. I forced a smile, choosing the safest options, plain vegetables and rice. But as I reached for a slice of bread, Jane suddenly stopped me. Actually, maybe not that one, she said quickly. I'm not sure if the baker used soy flour. My stomach dropped. I slowly put the bread down, my mind racing. Thank you for letting me know, I said cautiously. But a thought gnawed at me. How did she know about the soy flour? The timing was too perfect. The save was too precise. The rest of the meal passed in a blur, conversations mixing with the clinking of glasses. But beneath Jane's hospitality, I sensed something else. Something waiting. Something planned. The family dinner was lavish. But my stomach wasn't tied in hunger, it was knotted in fear. Every dish was a potential hazard. A hidden enemy. Something that could send me to the hospital, or worse. Jane sat at the head of the table, presiding over the meal like a queen in her court. She tapped her glass, calling for attention. Before we begin, I just want to say how thrilled we are to be celebrating Liz and Alex's upcoming addition to our family, she announced, her voice steady and clear. There was a round of cheers and applause. I forced a smile, feeling Alex squeeze my hand under the table. Thank you, everyone, I said. We're really looking forward to this new chapter in our lives. As the meal continued, Jane's eyes stayed on me. Liz, you haven't touched your salad. The dressing is on the side, just how you like it, she said, her voice laced with forced cheerfulness. Thank you, Jane. I'm just not that hungry tonight, I replied, avoiding the salad that could easily contain hidden allergens. Then came the cake. A beautiful confection, layers of sponge and cream, the kind that made the room ooh and ah. Jane cut a slice and handed it to me, her smile calculated. "For the mom-to-be," she said. I hesitated. "I really shouldn't," I murmured. Jane's smile widened. "Oh, come on, Liz. One little bite won't hurt."
For the baby.
That's when Alex's dad, Mark, moved. His hand shot out, knocking the plate from mine. The cake tumbled to the floor. A stunned silence fell over the room. "What the hell, Dad?" Alex exclaimed, his voice a mix of anger and confusion. Mark's face was pale, his voice firm. "I saw the label in the trash." He swallowed hard. "That cake has peanut oil in it." The room erupted in chaos. Jane's face was a picture of shock, but her eyes? For the briefest moment I saw it.
Fear.
Maybe even guilt. Alex stood, his chair clattering behind him. "Mom, did you know about this?" he demanded. Jane's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. And in that moment, the truth was as clear as the danger that had been on my plate. This wasn't an accident. This was intentional. And Jane's mask? It had finally slipped. All because of a peanut. The drive home was silent, the kind of silence that's heavy, filled with things unsaid. When we finally stepped through our front door, Alex and I just stood there, the echoes of the night still ringing in our ears.
He was the first to speak.
"I can't believe my own mother would do something like that," he said, his voice hollow. I sank onto the couch, but even the cushions couldn't comfort me. "I know," I murmured. "It's a lot to take in." Alex sat beside me, taking my hands in his. His grip was firm, but I could feel the tremble in his fingers.
"I'm so sorry, Liz."
It's unforgivable." I looked into his eyes, red-rimmed, filled with pain, and my heart ached. "It's not your fault, Alex. We couldn't have known she'd go this far." But the truth hung between us. Jane had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The family was in pieces. Some stood by us, shocked and appalled by Jane's actions. Others struggled to wrap their heads around what had happened. Alex's phone buzzed constantly, messages, calls, relatives reaching out to express their shock, support, and apologies. And through it all, from Jane, silence. No apologies. No explanations.
Nothing.
A week later, Alex finally broke the news to me. Dad's left her. I looked up. "What?" He swallowed, running a hand through his hair. "He can't get past what she did. Said it's been a long time coming." I wasn't sure what to feel. Relief? Sadness?
Pity?
"And Jane?" I asked hesitantly. Alex exhaled. "She's not handling it well. She's alone now." There was a flicker of regret in his voice, but I knew, even now, he was still her son. We sat in our living room, the walls we had painted together, the furniture we had picked out on endless store trips. This was our home, a place filled with our memories, our love. Outside, a storm brewed, one that threatened to uproot everything we knew. But in that moment, I realized something. No matter what happened, we had each other. We were a team. We were about to bring a new life into the world. And that was what mattered. Alex pulled me into his arms. "I love you, Liz." I smiled, resting my forehead against his. "I love you too." The fallout from that night would linger. The scars it left on our family would take time to heal. But as I looked at Alex, at the life we had built, and the future waiting for us, I knew we would weather any storm together. And as for Jane, she was a closed chapter, a story that we refused to let define us. From now on, it was just us, our baby, and the road ahead. Whatever it brought, we'd face it together. Please feel free to comment below if you like this. Remember to like and subscribe for more.